Welcome back. All right, so my continuing look at teams around the NHL and the summers they've had thus far, I want to talk about the Winnipeg Jets today. The Winnipeg Jets are a team that it feels like still have a lot of question marks, and I'm not sure what this team's going to look like come fall. It is possible they look like what we have on the board right here, but there are still question marks about whether or not players might get traded and what they're looking for if they do look to trade those players, because Ehlers has been rumored to be on the block. We know that Rucker McGroarty's name's been out there plenty, but let's go through it. So first off, the Jets find themselves right in that mushy middle, 15th in Stanley Cup odds. Again, according to the odds makers, so they're right around the middle, which may very well be where they end up. So this past season, they were 15th in goal scoring. They were first in goals against. Hellebuck playing some of the best hockey he has in his career during the regular season, and then the playoffs being a different beast for him. And I think for the Winnipeg Jets, some kind of change needs to happen. The attendance this past season, there was a lot of discussion about the attendance, and there's doom and gloom around some that say, oh, this team isn't going to last. Their attendance, 13,490 per game, was 31st in the NHL, ahead of only the Arizona Coyotes, who of course played out of the mullet, which could only seat 4,600. The Winnipeg Jets paid attendance below that of the San Jose Sharks. Now, I'm just going to say I'm almost guaranteeing the Jets generated more off their tickets than San Jose did off of theirs, but it's not something that the Winnipeg Jets and their ownership like to see. You want to see that building filled. One thing with Canada Life Center is if it's not full, that is concerning. And I understand that there's economic reasons why people aren't going to the games. I know early in the season there was discussion about how the team was mediocre. I don't think the playoff results of this past year are going to convince people that they should buy tickets if they didn't buy them last season. So there's so many questions out there. And I'll go through the unanswered questions first, because I think those are key to discuss before we get into their lineup, which again is a pretty good lineup. But is Ehlers on the move? This has been the conversation about whether or not Nick Ehlers might end up being, headed somewhere else. Carolina's one that I saw rumored a lot. I didn't report on it on the channel because I stay out of the rumors for the most part. But that was one that was talked about a lot because we know Natchez may end up being on the move, and the idea of, well, do you move Natchez and Ehlers for each other? Ehlers is a forward that I think is underrated in the National Hockey League. That being said, this past season offensively, a little bit underwhelming, but he is a really solid all-around player. What are they going to do with McGroarty, though? So if the market for McGroarty's soft, and it may very well be soft, do you sign him? Do you try to find a way to get him signed? Because he wants to be sure he's going to play in the NHL. He doesn't feel like his path needs to go through the minor leagues, like through the AHL, so he wants an NHL job. And so the amount of teams that are going to be calling for a player who apparently wants a job right away in the NHL might be short. You're looking at teams like maybe Chicago, San Jose, Anaheim, teams that can offer a guy a roster spot, but what they're offering may not be what the Jets want. So it is a very dangerous situation Winnipeg find themselves in. You don't want to be giving away McGroarty for pennies on the dollar and then have him come back to haunt you later. And McGroarty should be a very good player at the NHL level. But my favorite of their recent draft picks, Colby Barlow, how long until he's an NHL regular? So let's just say Barlow comes in and has a great camp. It may mean that other players in their lineup become expendable, right? Maybe there's all of a sudden a glut of forwards in one spot, and then they can trade somebody out, bring somebody else in. Maybe you improve your blue line. But that's still a question mark to me is, Colby Barlow, who played a few games for Manitoba last year, I would think starts the season in Manitoba. But if he has a really, really strong start, how long is it until he's up? Because he was projected at the time of his draft as a player who was going to be top 6 and was pretty darn near NHL ready, at least physically. The mental side of it can take a little bit longer, but physically he was seen as being ready. Kakinen or Comrie. So both of them coming off of subpar seasons. I would put Kakinen ahead of Comrie right now. But the question then becomes, if Capo Kakinen is the backup, how many games does Hellebuck play? You don't want to end up overplaying him. and I'm not saying that happened this past season, but when a goaltender has a rough playoffs, it's a discussion you can have about whether or not they overplayed their goaltender. And Brad Lambert. Brad Lambert, of course, had a lot of... Bettman's flying over the house today. Good for him. But Lambert, there was a lot of hype about him in his draft year, and then he tumbled a bit. And it's really up and down. It feels like there's still some people who think Lambert could be a very good NHL player. Some think that he's overrated. I have no idea where Lambert's going to end up. But in the event that, let's just say, Barlow and Lambert both look like they're ready for NHL jobs, it may free up the Jets to make some changes. I do think that this is a team that needs to make some changes, because while this is a good core and it's a good team, we have seen year after year after year, they're not quite able to get over the hump. Here's how. 2018, they got all the way to the conference final. They lose against Vegas in 5 in the conference final. One thing I'll say about the Winnipeg Jets is when they lose a series, it's usually pretty fast. In 2019, they lost in the first round against St. Louis in 6. That was a series where the home team won Game 6. That was it. The first 5 games, the road team won every single game, which has been a problem for the Jets winning at home in the playoffs. And so they lose against St. Louis, who of course go on to win the Stanley Cup. But in 2020, they lost the qualifying round against the Flames. That was a 3-1 series, and the Flames just bullied them right out of the playoffs that year. 2021, they lose in 4 straight in the second round against the Montreal Canadiens, and that was after they got the upset victory over the Edmonton Oilers in the first round. Yeah, that jubilation didn't last. 2022, they missed the playoffs altogether. There was discussion about whether or not they might need some sort of retool or rebuild. They kept the lineup mostly the same, and in 2023, they returned to the playoffs. They lose against Vegas again in 5. And then, of course, this past spring, they meet Colorado in the first round. I was one of the ones that took them to beat Colorado. I thought, you know what, Winnipeg set. And it's not because I was trying to underrate or, bury Colorado. I just felt like Winnipeg had a great season. They entered the playoffs 4th on my power rankings, and they lost to Colorado in 5 games. And it was tough because that first game, Winnipeg just destroys Colorado and Georgiev, and then after that, the rest of the series goes entirely the other direction. So, for the Winnipeg Jets, their top line likely will be Connor, Scheifele, Vilardi. That's very likely the way it goes. Connor, nearly a point per game with 61 points in 65 games. I'm wearing my Kyle Connor jersey here. I got this one from SVP Sports. Just dirt cheap prices on jerseys right now, so sure, I'll buy one for $50. Thanks. But yeah, so Kyle Connor had a good year. I think he's still a 40-goal scorer through a full 82-game schedule anyways, but he's got to play every game. Scheifele's good for about a point per game every year. 72 points in 74 games this past year. Yeah, he's point per game. Vilardi only played 47 games, had 22 goals and 36 points though, so Vilardi needs to play a full season, and I mean, ideally, he's playing top minutes because he showed how well he can score this past season. Nick Ehlers had 25 goals and 61 points in 82 games, and again, his name's been out there in rumors. There are those who believe he's very much underrated. I would agree. If you don't watch the Jets play, it would be easy to look at Ehlers' contract and his cap hit and say, I guess he's all right. He's a very good player. I think that cap hit's kind of a bargain. Lowry or Nemesnikov as your second-line center, to me, that's where things get a little iffy. And I say that because while I like Lowry and Nemesnikov and their work ethic, I don't know that they have a true number 2 center. My memory tells me Vilardi's played down the middle before. So there's that opportunity, right? Lowry, 81 games, 12 goals, 35 points. Again, Lowry's their captain. He's a fantastic player. But should he be the second-line center? No. Perfetti had 19 goals in 71 games, 38 points. Perfetti, I think, is ready for a greater role with this team. Don't make him a healthy scratch again. But then you get down to the third line. And what I've done with a lot of these is I've talked just about the top 6. I don't feel like that tells you the whole picture with the Jets. You got to go with the top 9. And it's interesting because, again, in goal scoring, they were 15th in the league this past season. So it's interesting that their offense, I think, is excellent. Nino Niederreiter had 18 goals and 34 points this past season in 77 games. Love Nino's game. Nemesnikov, 11 goals, 37 points in 78 games. He's finally found a home. And Appleton, 14 goals, 36 assists in 82 games. After a brief stopover in Seattle, he comes back to Winnipeg, and he's right back to being a very good third-line forward. So I love the top 9 in Winnipeg, and I like this team, but definitely there's something that's causing them to not quite get over the hump in the playoffs, and I do think changes need to be made. They got to be the right ones, right? Now, on the blue line, you've still got Josh Morrissey, 10 goals, 59 assists, 69 points in 81 games. Morrissey's a great defenseman. It's mildly thin after that. Now, DeMello had a career year, 3 goals, 28 assists for 31 points. Played all 82 games. I think they're going to miss Dylan. I think this is a good season to give Heinola a legitimate chance to show what he can do in the top 6 as well. Sandberg might take a bit of a jump offensively. He only had 1 goal this past season with 17 assists. I think there's a little more offense there. Pionk, 5 goals, 28 assists, 33 points. Pionk at times looked pretty good. At other times, and again, Winnipeg does finish first in goals against, so the defense was good. And Hellebuck was excellent. 37, 19, and 4 with a .921 save percentage. But with Hellebuck, what's interesting is the playoff numbers. So we go all the way back to 2018 and that run to the conference final. And over the length of that playoff run, Hellebuck goes 9-8 with a .922 save percentage. Good numbers. 2019, he's 2-4, .913 save percentage. 2020, 1-3 with a .904 save percentage. 2021 in the Canadian division, 4-4 with a .931 save percentage. And then it gets kind of ugly over the last couple years. Now, keeping in mind that's against Vegas and Colorado. These are two teams that can light you up. The 2023 Vegas Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup. But it was an .886 save percentage for Hellebuck. Vegas, and again, full disclosure, Vegas took apart every goaltender they played in the 2023 playoffs. No goaltender had good numbers, but still, it's a bit troubling with Hellebuck to see the .886. And then against Colorado, it gets worse, .870. And there were times that Colorado just looked like they could score at will on Hellebuck. Not all of that comes down on Hellebuck. A lot of it, I think, too, is the defense. And just Colorado's pretty darn talented. And once they get things rolling, they can be hard to stop. But the Jets need to figure this out because a lot of these young players are in their prime or a little bit above prime age. And prime is considered like between 24 and 28 usually, or 23 and 28. And then above 28, you're getting a little bit out of your prime. Once you get into your early 30s, it's more and more difficult. So Winnipeg is a team that looks like they have a roster that can compete for the Stanley Cup. They've got the point man in Morrissey. They've got the forward depth. They've got the starting goaltender. But they just haven't quite been able to get it together. And they've got all these question marks as well. So for me with the Winnipeg Jets, I'm hopeful they get all this straightened out, whether it means making trades or whatever they need to do. But it feels like some kind of a shakeup is still in the offing before we get to the regular season this year. So I'd like to ask Jets fans, what do you think Kevin Cheveldayoff does from here for the rest of the summer? If the answer is nothing, you can leave that in the comments section. Sure, I'm not going to say it's going to be nothing. I think McGroarty gets traded. I don't think they're going to get back necessarily what they want. I only say that because since the trade hasn't happened yet, maybe their ask is a little bit high. And I do think there's going to be a shakeup when it comes to their forward group. I'm just not sure what that's going to end up looking like because, again, you've gone this many years where your team could be qualified as a contender, going back to 2018 when they were in the conference final, and they were the number 2 team overall in the NHL that regular season. They definitely look like they were going to win something soon. So for the Jets, I think a fast start's important for them this coming season for their attendance. But for their overall cup health, they're going to need some kind of a change. And maybe a blue liner, too. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding the Winnipeg Jets. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.